John O'Connell, the author and farmer and journalist and broadcaster, has joined us now in the studio to discuss his new book, The Cow Book. John, thanks very much for calling into us. Can you tell us what the book's about, John, and what inspires you to write it?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's wonderful to be here at the Agriland. It's not a tent anymore, it's a whole pavilion, and there's a great crowd. And I know that thousands of people are watching online, so congratulations on that. The book is the story of my life as a beef and sheep farmer in Longford. And I was a journalist and filmmaker before in Australia for 5 to 6 years and in Canada for another 2. And I came back to Ireland 3 years ago to write a book, but I ended up becoming a farmer again. And it has changed my life for the better. I always loved farming, but life brought me in a different direction. I didn't think I'd end up farming. So when I came back here 3 years ago, it just sort of happened, but it has been a wonderful experience.
And John, you have had vast experience. You've worked all across the world in journalism. It's a very exciting space to be working in. Did you ever envisage that you would be back farming in Longford? Because you were over in Australia winning awards for your journalism. You're very focused on human rights. Did you ever imagine that you would be sitting here with us at the Ploughing Championships discussing your book called The Cow Book?
If you told me this 10 years ago, I wouldn't have believed it. But I suppose to say the other side of that is I always loved farming, and it was always something I intended to come back to. I just didn't think it'd be so soon. I thought I'd come back maybe in my 40s, have a few quid made, and build a house and a farm. But it was unusual. But I think things happen for a reason, and I think the success of the book has really been because there are there's tens of thousands of people farming, and there hasn't been a book that talked about their way of life. And I'm a firm believer in God gives everyone gifts, and He gave me the gift of writing, and He also made me come from a farm. So write what you know, which is the old adage. And I had tried writing other books which were about refugees and JFK, but the last time I checked I wasn't a refugee, and I certainly wasn't JFK. So writing a book about being a farmer was the most authentic thing I could do. And that carries across. Readers are smart people. They want real stories, and there's enough of fake news in the world. So to have something that's real, wrote by a real person, I think there's a great gravity to that.
And John, your connection with the land, the connection to the farm, that really grew within you over the years before you wrote the book. And I've heard you speak before very beautifully on that. That connection has been reignited for you, has it?
Yeah, it has. I mean, it seems strange to evoke the Aborigines here, but they actually have the Aboriginal Australians have the same way of looking at land as Irish people do. Land isn't just something that you own, it's something that you belong to, and it defines who your character is. You know, if you ask anyone here today from the Ploughing, who are their people, where are they from, we all try and locate each other. And when you locate that person, you get to understand them. So it goes down to even a parish level or a townland level. And so land has helped define me. And I talked about it in, the Bailliaga Spaha, the thing that makes me connected to it. The Driacht, if I dare say, the magical connection. But it makes us feel rooted to a place. And in a time of, I suppose, great wandering in the world, people move for jobs, they move for careers, they move for love, and of course with all the millions of people moving because of wars and conflict, we are the people that stayed, and land is the thing that has tied us to this place, and the ploughing is a celebration of the people who have stayed in one place and made their life there, and I think it's a wonderful thing to celebrate.
In the book you also write a lot about your relationship with your father and farming with your dad. What was it like to come back from living abroad, living very independently, to coming home and working in such close proximity to your dad?
Yeah, I mean, look, it was interesting. when you're so used to living independently, and I was running a business and I had people working for me, it was a big change to come back and work for someone else and him be your dad. But it was a real experience. But I wouldn't change it now. Now that I look back, I wouldn't change it, because the book wouldn't exist and I wouldn't be the person I am. And I went through a couple of dark times, and my family were there for me to help me through that. And if I hadn't had them, then I don't know where I'd be. So sometimes in life, the older you get, you realise that certain choices define moments in your life, and the choice of coming home has been the decision of a lifetime. And working alongside my father has made me understand him a lot better, but also be able to understand the people of that generation. Like, they worked so hard for everything, and I think we can forget that sometimes in our lives, because things are a lot different in Ireland anymore.
And John, what are some of the biggest challenges you've come across? Now, you're a suckler farmer based down in Longford. Returning to your farming roots, what have been some of the major challenges? Because it's a sector that is challenged.
I mean, it is challenged. I suppose the biggest issue is price. It's price. We're looking at we've had an unbelievable year. The effects of climate change are real. I know you were talking with the minister, and he talked about that. The economy has changed, and we as farmers are getting less and less of the pie, even though we take all the risk and do all the work, because the big agricultural companies and also the supermarkets are controlling prices and dictating terms. So, and then of course you have to add the weather to that. So for beef farmers, we're looking at a very uncertain future. They're saying that we have to expand to make the same income, which that doesn't make sense, but we have to do it. But also, it's a difficult time. I was at the Mart only 2 weeks ago, and the factories are slashing prices, and they can get away with it because people have to offload stock this year because there isn't enough fodder. So you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Now and then, economists will say, well, look, you're making a life choice, you want to live like this, but we're not making a life choice. We're trying to make a living, and in order to make a living, there has to be fair prices. So that's probably the biggest issue for not just for me, but for every suckler farmer, also dairy farmers. The price volatility is still an issue. It's something that I think we have to band together and work on. And I know our farm groups are talking about it, but we need to act as one on it.
And John, the book has made bestseller lists all across the country and abroad. What have you been surprised by? Have you been surprised by the response? It has really touched people.
It's been unbelievable. I say I must be the only man to have benefited from the big storm, because I was on the Late Late that time, and I had a captive audience in the whole country. It's been an unbelievable year. I never thought that. I dreamed about these things, but I never thought the book would be 30 weeks in the bestseller list, and I never thought that I'd travel around England and Ireland and talk to people about farming, or mental health, or just life, And the really wonderful thing in it is I've got to meet people who've had a connection with farming, or maybe their grandparents were farmers or they live in a city, and it brought them back to another way of life and made them think about things differently. We do have in Ireland a wonderful respect for the writer, the musician, the poet still, and sometimes you think that Ireland has changed for the negative and that didn't exist, but the book's success has proved that, and it has been enormously humbling, the whole experience. I can't put it into any better words. I came to the Plough 2 years ago and nobody knew me or anything like that, and today I got stopped by several different people and they said I enjoyed your book, and all I could say was thanks, because you feel like you're meeting someone on a real terms. Of course, they've read the book, so they know my whole life, but it's been great. It's been absolutely great.
And farmers are also great storytellers themselves. I'm sure most farmers who are sitting in here with us could write a book themselves on the different experiences they've had on the land, because there is that raw personal connection.
I mean, the media made a lot about me and my father in it, but to be honest, I wouldn't be the writer I am without him, because he is best storyteller I know, and it's all oral, and I've listened to him tell stories all my life, and it was from him that I picked up how to weave a tale. But you're right, farmers have some great stories, and all you need to do is go to a market and listen sometimes, and the stuff is unbelievable. I could write a whole book about that again. What strikes me is the ordinary decency of people, and the quiet humility that they have, and they could have had an amazing thing happen in their life, and they wouldn't even nearly tell you about it, but they'll tell you about something that happened with a cow, and then slowly in telling you the story about the cow, they'll unfurl their own personal life, and you get to know them, and they reveal themselves through their farming. That's the great thing with farmers. They can be shut mouth, but when you get to know them, they're enormously caring and very deep people.
So John, obviously there's a huge appetite out there for these types of reads. What's the next chapter for you? Is there another book on the
There's
horizon?
another book on the horizon. I can't really talk about it too much because I haven't wrote it, but we're working on it. We're working on a deal and whatnot. I spent the summer fencing, but I also spent the summer working on a play, which is about a farming family in Australia. I lived in Australia for a long time, and it's about farmers who are affected by the drought. There's a terrible drought there. I know that Irish farmers know this, but there's been a drought of nearly a decade in some parts of Australia, and we got a small glimmer of that for a month or two here, and it was pretty dire. So imagine 10 years of it. So that play is about that. It's called The Camels of Corda. It's about an Irish-Australian family living on a wheat farm in Western Australia, and things are not going well. So that's a story that I've been working on for about 4 years, and we've taken some meeting with actors and things like that. So yeah,
when can we expect that to be on
look,
stage?
it'll probably be next year now. We had a meeting with some well-known actors 2 weekends ago, and if the theatre world is anything like the book world, these things take time, but good things come to those who wait.
And what about the farm at home, John? What lies ahead?
Well, as I say, I was fencing the last month. We're not doing too bad. We have a second cut to get on our silage, which will bring us up to the last year's level of silage. Really, it's going to bring us through the winter. Hopefully, if the winter isn't too long. Things are fine. There's no big plans for expansion, or I won't be buying a farm of land or anything too soon. But it's steady as she goes, and things are going okay at the moment. And you don't want to jinx it sometimes, so it's going okay. And I'm happy, and we're happy. And I suppose my father and mother are happy that the book is a success. They were wondering what was going on for a few years. So yeah.
Well, congratulations, John, and we wish you every success, and we'll all keep an eye out for the next stage edition and your next edition, your next book. So thank you very much for joining us, John. And next up now we have a special interview with An Taoiseach Leo Varadkar.